Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Marcus always believed he had a fulfilling life. His marriage to Rebecca seemed stable, built on years of trust, love, and a routine that for him was synonymous with security. They had 2 wonderful children in a cozy home where the sound of kids' laughter filled the hallways, making each day a little more special. Marcus never had to question Rebecca's loyalty because in his mind she was his partner for life, someone he could count on to weather any storm. But sometimes people's true nature only appears when we're faced with the unexpected, and that's exactly what happened that night. Rebecca asked him to talk after the kids went to bed. Her tone of voice was casual, but there was something different in her eyes, as if she was about to say something that would change everything. Marcus, with no idea what was coming, settled on the couch expecting it to be just another chat about the day or maybe their weekend plans. But Rebecca got straight to the point. "What do you think about going to a swingers party?" The question hit like thunder. Marcus blinked a few times, not believing what he'd just heard. Maybe he'd misunderstood. Maybe she was joking. But the subtle smile on her face showed she was serious. "What?" he asked, hoping she'd correct herself. "A swinger party," Rebecca repeated, now more enthusiastically. "Something new, different. It could be fun." The word "fun" sounded so off that Marcus almost let out a nervous laugh. His stomach lurched. In all those years, he'd never seen any sign that Rebecca would think this way. They'd never even had a single conversation hinting she was dissatisfied or looking for something like this. But there she was, right in front of him, saying it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Marcus leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, trying to find a logical explanation. "Are you serious?" Rebecca sighed and rolled her eyes as if he were being naive. "Of course I'm serious. Lots of people do it, and everything goes back to normal afterward. It's just a way to break out of our routine." Breaking out of their routine. Marcus felt a heaviness in his chest. So that was it, their marriage had become a monotonous cycle for her. But instead of talking it out, instead of finding ways for them to rekindle the spark together, Rebecca thought the solution was being with other people. He took a deep breath, fighting the wave of emotions building up inside him. "This makes no sense. You want me to watch you with another man? You want me to be with another woman right in front of you?" Rebecca shrugged. "I don't see a problem with it. As long as we both agree, it wouldn't be cheating." "It wouldn't be cheating," he repeated, incredulous. The idea that his wife could even consider this was already hard to take in, but what scared him most was how natural she made it sound, as if it wouldn't affect anything, as if it wouldn't destroy everything they'd built. Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He'd never been the jealous or controlling type, but this went beyond any acceptable boundary for him. "I'm not doing it." Rebecca crossed her arms. "Why not? You won't even consider it?" "Because it goes against everything I believe in, against everything we've built. I don't want to share you with anyone." She rolled her eyes again with a frustrated sigh. "You're just shutting yourself off from new experiences. Do you think it would make me a worse person?" Marcus couldn't believe the direction this conversation was taking. "It's not about being better or worse, Rebecca. It's about respect, about commitment. You really see no issue with this?" She looked away for a second, then gave a slight smile. "I think you're overreacting. But fine, you don't have to decide right now. Just think about it, okay?" She stood up from the couch and headed to the kitchen like she just suggested a simple weekend trip. Marcus stayed there, motionless, feeling a growing sense of anguish. This wasn't just a silly idea, it was a sign of something much bigger. And in that moment, for the first time, Marcus felt their marriage was on the brink of a cliff. Marcus spent the next few days trying to forget that conversation. He wanted to believe Rebecca had spoken on impulse, that it was nothing more than a temporary fantasy, something that would vanish as quickly as it appeared. But deep down, he knew that wasn't the case. The way she insisted, the casual way she treated such a serious subject, everything pointed to the fact it wasn't just a passing notion. And the confirmation came faster than he expected. One evening, as they were watching TV, Rebecca brought it up again with the same ease as someone picking a restaurant. "Did you think about what I said?" she asked. Her voice was casual, but her gaze was locked on him. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, letting out a long sigh. "I don't need to think about it. My answer is still the same." Rebecca turned fully toward him, now totally serious. "Marcus, you're ignoring something that could be good for both of us. You always said you trust me, right?" He frowned. "This has nothing to do with trust. It's about respect." Rebecca shook her head, impatient. "Respect? I'm not cheating on you. I'm not hiding anything. I'm making room for us to experience something together, something that could make our relationship stronger." Marcus couldn't hold back a bitter laugh. "Stronger? How exactly is sleeping with other people supposed to make what we have stronger?" She sighed like she was explaining the obvious to someone stubborn. "Because when a couple allows themselves new experiences, they form a stronger, more honest bond. We've been together for so long, why not bring something new into the relationship?" He felt his stomach churn. This wasn't the woman he married, or maybe it was, and he just hadn't noticed. "You really believe that, don't you?" he asked, looking her in the eye. Rebecca didn't hesitate. "Yes. And I wish you believed it too." That was the first time Marcus felt real fear for the future of their marriage. Rebecca wasn't just considering it, she had already made up her mind. That night, he barely slept. Or rather, he lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to Rebecca's calm breathing next to him as if nothing had changed. But inside him, everything was falling apart. Then came the final blow. 2 days later, during breakfast, Rebecca played her last card. "If I recorded everything, would you feel safer?" Marcus nearly dropped his cup. "What? If I filmed it? That way you'd see it's not a big deal, that it wouldn't change anything between us." For a moment, Marcus thought she was just testing his limits. But Rebecca was looking at him with complete seriousness. This was where they had ended up. It wasn't an invitation anymore. It wasn't a request. It was an ultimatum. That was when Marcus knew. "If you go, our marriage is over," he spoke firmly, without any hesitation, delivering a non-negotiable verdict. Rebecca blinked as though she hadn't expected that. "Are you serious?" "More than ever." She stared at him for a few seconds, sizing him up. Then she gave a small smirk. "I think you're overreacting." She stood up, grabbed her car keys, and left. Marcus stayed there at the table, feeling the world cave in around him. Rebecca's mind was already made up, and now he had to make his. Marcus remained where he was, motionless, listening as Rebecca's car drove away. The silence that settled over the house felt heavier than ever. His wife had made her choice, and now he needed to make his. The marriage he believed was rock solid, built on trust and respect, had just collapsed before his eyes. And the worst part? Rebecca didn't seem the least bit sorry, unsure, or hesitant. For her, it was just a natural step, a game without consequences. But for Marcus, it was a betrayal even before it happened. He sat there at the table for a few minutes, trying to process it all. His heart raced, his chest felt heavy, and the only thing he knew was that he couldn't just stay put anymore. He looked at the door, at the kids' car seats, at all the signs of a routine that until a few weeks ago he believed unshakable. Rebecca was gone, but he was still there. That was what needed to change. Marcus stood, went to the bedroom, and grabbed his laptop. Something pushed him to find answers, to figure out what else drove Rebecca's obsession. But when he opened the email account they shared, the one used for streaming subscriptions and household bills, he discovered something unexpected, an email from the night before. An invitation. Rebecca had already confirmed she'd be at the party before even talking to him that morning. She hadn't made the decision over breakfast. She'd decided long before. It was worse than he imagined. Acting on impulse, he opened her browsing history. He'd never done that before, he'd never had a reason to. But now he had to know. And what he found confirmed his worst fears. Rebecca had been looking at parties, forums, and communities. She wasn't exploring a sudden curiosity, she was already involved in that world. A chill ran down Marcus's spine. If Rebecca was already in that scene before mentioning it, was that really the first time she'd done anything like this? Was the party that night just the first one where she felt comfortable enough to be open with him about it? He wanted to stop looking but couldn't. He kept scrolling through the history, conversation pages, invitations, confirmations. On one link, he saw a private group she'd joined, and among the comments, one in particular caught his eye, a post from her, "My husband doesn't know yet, but I'm in. I can't wait." It felt like a punch in the gut. She wasn't just considering a possibility, she'd decided long before she ever spoke to him. The conversation about filming it, about trying it together, it was all just an act. Marcus closed the laptop and took a deep breath, trying to keep his hands steady. His marriage was already over, he just hadn't known it until now. But if Rebecca thought she could play with him and walk away unscathed, she was dead wrong. He grabbed his phone and got to work. First, he called a lawyer. Night hadn't even fallen, and he was already filing for divorce. Then he did something he never thought he would, he grabbed an external hard drive and copied every piece of evidence he'd found. If Rebecca wanted to destroy their marriage, she'd face all the consequences. Hours passed. It was almost midnight when Marcus heard the car pulling into the garage. He stayed on the couch, unmoving, staring at the blank TV screen. The door opened. Rebecca walked in, her hair a bit messy, her makeup slightly smudged, but still smiling, a smile that said she'd had a good time, a smile with no hint of guilt. "Hey," she said, tossing her keys on the living room table. "Still up?" Marcus looked at her. For the first time, he didn't see the woman he loved. He only saw a stranger. Marcus stayed seated on the couch, watching Rebecca come in as if nothing was out of the ordinary. She tossed the keys on the table, took off her shoes, and let out a satisfied sigh. The scent of her perfume blended with another smell he didn't recognize, a detail he'd never forget. "Still awake?" she asked, flashing a lazy smile. It took Marcus a few seconds to reply. His mind was still absorbing the scene, every detail he never thought he'd witness. "Yes," he said, his voice colder than he intended. Rebecca noticed. "Oh, Marcus, come on," she said, rolling her eyes and heading to the kitchen for a glass of water. "Don't start." He leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. "Start what?" She gave a half smile. "All this drama. I knew you'd react like this." Marcus watched her, startled by her cynicism, the way she spoke as if he were the problem, as if this was all just his stubbornness. "You knew?" She took a sip of water, nodding casually. "Sure. You've always been so traditional. But seriously, you're blowing this way out of proportion." He felt his stomach knot. Blowing it out of proportion? Yes. Look, I went, had fun, and here I am. Everything's still the same. Nothing's changed. Marcus let out a short, dry laugh. Nothing's changed? Rebecca shrugged like she really believed it. You're still here, I'm still here. Our marriage is still the same. That was the last straw. Marcus got up slowly, no rush, no shouting. His eyes were blank, and for the first time, Rebecca seemed to realize something was off. I want you to leave. His voice was firm, unwavering. Rebecca blinked a few times, her brow furrowing. What? You heard me. Get out of my house. She let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, stop it, Marcus. You're overreacting. We'll talk tomorrow, Anne." "There is no tomorrow." Rebecca's smile faded. "You're serious?" Marcus looked her in the eye, and she knew it wasn't just a threat. He picked up his phone and typed something quickly. In seconds, Rebecca heard a notification pop up on her own phone. Confused, she pulled it from her purse and unlocked the screen. And then her face went pale. "What's this?" she stammered. Marcus crossed his arms. "A backup." Rebecca opened the video, and her breath caught when she realized it was of her, the exact moment she'd recorded herself having fun at the party with the same strangers she insisted would change nothing. "How did you get this?" she stammered, shock replacing any remaining arrogance. "You're not as discreet as you think, Rebecca. And you're not as careful." Rebecca's eyes widened, her hand trembling around the phone. "You hacked my phone? You gave me access to your email, remember? The one we use for our streaming services and bills. You forgot your cloud does automatic uploads." She opened and closed her mouth, speechless. Marcus stepped closer. "You'd been planning this for weeks. This party wasn't some impulse or sudden idea. You were already in that world long before you told me." "Marcus, I can explain." He held up a hand to stop her. "No need. You explained everything the moment you walked out that door tonight." Desperation finally flickered in her eyes. "That doesn't mean." "I've already filed for divorce," he cut her off. Rebecca stumbled back a step as if she'd been punched. "What? And I'm going to fight for full custody of the kids." "No." She finally panicked. "Marcus, please don't do this." He looked at her with a calmness that scared her. "You already did." Marcus grabbed his car keys and walked to the door. Rebecca, now completely desperate, ran over and grabbed his arm. "Listen, we can fix this." He paused, looking at her like it was for the last time. "You threw away what we had. Now deal with the consequences." Then, with nothing left to say, he left, leaving Rebecca alone in the living room, clutching the phone that held the proof of her own mistake. Marcus drove around with no destination, every mile reminding him of the weight of what he'd just done. His marriage was over. More than that, the entire illusion he had built over 8 years had shattered before his eyes. He'd always thought he knew Rebecca, that they shared an unbreakable bond, that she would never toss aside everything they had. But the truth? She'd thrown it all away a long time ago. He'd just been slow to see it. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat. "Rebecca." He ignored it. It buzzed again and again and again. Desperate messages started piling up on the screen. "Marcus, please pick up. Forgive me. We need to talk. It was a mistake. It means nothing to me. Don't keep me from the kids. I'm begging you." Marcus let out a bitter laugh. Now it meant nothing. Now it was a mistake. Now she was begging. She wasn't sorry when she left that night. She wasn't worried about consequences when she came back smiling, sure she could just resume life like nothing had happened. Now it was too late. He parked near the park where he used to take the kids on Sundays. At this hour, it was empty, lit only by tall street lamps casting long shadows on the ground. He got out of the car, breathing in the chilly night air. He needed a moment of silence to gather his thoughts before taking his next step, because even though his marriage was dead, the real battle was just starting. He knew Rebecca wouldn't accept the divorce easily, much less losing custody of the kids. But he wouldn't let his children grow up in a home where commitment and respect were disposable. He picked up his phone and finally replied, "There's nothing left to discuss, Rebecca. My lawyer files everything tomorrow. See you in court." He blocked her number before she could respond. The divorce process was quick but anything but simple. Rebecca tried to argue, to defend herself, to play the few cards she had left. She cried in front of the judge, tried to make herself look like the victim, swore she was sorry, that she still loved Marcus, that she wanted to rebuild their family. But the evidence was solid: videos, messages, browser history. There was nothing to dispute. When the ruling came out, Marcus knew that was the real end. Custody of the children went to him. Rebecca could visit them, but only under specific conditions. How she behaved over the next few months would decide whether she kept that right. She lost more than she could have imagined. Marcus found no pleasure in watching her fall. It wasn't about revenge, never was. It was simply the inevitable result of her own actions. A few months later, Marcus was rebuilding his life. The pain was still there, but it felt different. It was no longer a suffocating weight on his chest, it was just a scar, something that once hurt but now served as a reminder. The kids were fine. In fact, they seemed happier. The atmosphere at home was lighter without the silent tension he hadn't even realized was there before. And him? He relearned how to live without Rebecca. He relearned how to trust. He learned how to be happy. One afternoon, while taking the kids to that same park where he'd spent that decisive night, he ran into a neighbor, Dylan, a quiet man who always spoke calmly and kept to himself. They exchanged greetings, and Marcus noticed something weighed on Dylan's expression. "I wanted to tell you something," Dylan said, hesitating. "Something you might want to know." Marcus frowned. "What is it?" His neighbor looked away for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Rebecca, that party she went to." Marcus felt his heart beat a bit faster. "What about it?" Dylan pressed his lips together and sighed. It wasn't the first time. Silence. For a moment, it felt like the world shrank. Marcus kept his eyes on Dylan, trying to process what he'd just heard. "What do you mean?" The neighbor scratched the back of his neck, looking uncomfortable. "I saw her several times before that party. She'd leave when you weren't around, always very discreet. I thought maybe it was just a friend or some errand, but when I heard about the divorce, I put two and two together." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the bitter taste of the truth on his tongue. What he suspected, what he feared, what he'd always tried to ignore, it was real. Rebecca had been cheating on him for a long time. That party wasn't the beginning, it was just the moment she felt comfortable enough to reveal who she really was. And oddly enough, he didn't feel anger. He felt relief. Because right then, he knew the divorce wasn't a loss, it was a release. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.